The Virginia Cable Telecommunications Association and your local cable provider presents Cable Reports. Join us now as Cable Reports brings you up to date on current issues facing the Commonwealth through discussions with your local legislators and other policymakers from across Virginia.
From the General Assembly and the City of Richmond, I'm Woody Evans for Cable Reports, brought to you by the Virginia Cable Telecommunications Association and Comcast, connecting Virginians to their government. We're very pleased to have with us today Delegate Randy Minchew. Good to see you again.
Good to see you, Woody. It's been a while, and it's great to talk about public policy here.
Absolutely. So this short session has proceeded smoothly, has it not?
It's been wonderful. It has been without acrimony. It's very compressed. I'll be 45 days of work. And it's kind of like putting a 10-pound of flour in a 5-pound sack, but there have not been any really partisan bits of acrimony, no big issues with the governor. And so knock on wood, Woody, we've only got about 8 more days to go, and hopefully we'll wrap up in a very good and productive and bipartisan way.
Well, what about your district and your constituents? How have they fared over the last few years in terms of the economy?
Well, the economy has been coming back. My district, of course, includes the town of Leesburg, the old wonderful colonial town of Leesburg, western Loudoun County, Virginia's wine country, crossing over the Blue Ridge Mountains into southern Clark County, which has a great agricultural history, and going all the way into Frederick County to where it hits Interstate 81, just south of Winchester. We have one of the lowest unemployment rates of any of the 100 House districts. Our economy is pretty diverse. We've got rural economy, winemaking. We've got close to 25 wineries. But the effects of sequestration, the reduction in federal spending, has kind of an after effect falling into our district. Many people in my district work in the inner suburbs where the economy is driven by government contracting and defense spending. But it's not been bad. I think we're blessed to have an area where low unemployment and pretty good household incomes. But we're seeing the economy improving and becoming more diversified, which is a good thing.
So besides the federal government employees that populate your district, where do people work in terms of private employers?
We have a lot of people in my district who work in the inner suburbs. Tyson's Corner is one of the largest employment areas of our Commonwealth, and that's only about a 20-mile drive, east along Route 7 or the Greenway and Dulles Airport Access Road. I have a number of constituents who work in downtown Washington, work on K Street and Georgetown down that way. So we're kind of in the outer range. I'd say about 30% of my district commuters work in Washington, D.C. or Fairfax County, Arlington. Then we have a lot of homegrown industries around Leesburg. Loudoun County, as you probably know, has very low unemployment, a lot of work in information technology, data centers, applied technology. And then, of course, the way the rural economy has really taken off in western Loudoun with vintage beer making, rural breweries, the wine industry. 31 wineries are in my district. And the way we've diversified the rural economy has helped build some jobs where people don't even have to get in their cars and drive.
Great. So tourism, obviously, is an economic driver as well.
Absolutely, Woody. Matter of fact, my district has 2 major tourist corridors, both of which have been blessed by some wonderful tourism outreaches. You may have heard about them. Route 15, the journey through hallowed ground, going from Gettysburg all the way down to Charlottesville. Then on the western road, Route 50, the Mosby Heritage Area, where many Civil War battles were fought along that historic Route 50 corridor. So we've got 2 north-south and east-west corridors that are both blessed with great historical resources, and they kind of form an axis where right in the middle is the wine countries, Oatlands, the home of President James Monroe, for example, is in my district.
Now, you've been right in the middle of some very big issues here this session and in the past, and you mentioned the Dulles Greenway toll road. What's going on with that? I know you had a budget amendment relating to that.
I did, Woody. The Dulles Greenway, of course, is about a 13-mile road that was created through a public-private partnership well over about 25 years ago. And the tolls were set by the State Corporation Commission such that the Greenway could get a profit. And with a proviso that the tolls cannot rise to the point where they materially disencourage people from riding the road. If the tolls go up, people will take the free road, namely Route 7 or something. But the tolls have grown to the point where many of my constituents are saying, I just can't afford to ride the road. So a couple of bills were filed this session. Delegate Ramadan had a bill that was basically directing the State Corporation Commission to look at some additional changes in the law by which those toll increases are approved. I filed a bill, Woody, that was bringing kind of a private sector approach, and that was to authorize the Commonwealth Transportation Board to purchase the Greenway using Virginia revenue bonds. Virginia revenue bonds have a very low interest rate because of our good credit, I think about 2.5%.
So that AAA bond rating really helps.
It does. The interest rates are so low. So my theory was, Woody, don't spend any taxpayer dollars that currently go to roads, have revenue bonds that will be supported by the tolls, strike a business deal whereby the Commonwealth can buy the Greenway. It'll still be a toll road, but the tolls, the way I ran the numbers, would roughly cut in half. And then once those tolls are paid off and the bonds are paid off, then it's a free road. And it's all a question of could the Commonwealth buy the Greenway for a reasonable price, and then what is the structure by which revenue bonds could be floated that will allow for that acquisition. I thought it was a good idea, and one that I'm meeting with Secretary Lane on next week, by the way.
What's been the economic impact of the extension of the Metro out to Wheelie?
Well, eventually it's going to come out to Loudoun County in 2018. It's done a couple of things. First of all, the Wheelie Avenue current terminus of the Greenway is right in Reston, the heart of Reston, and so many of my commuters are now only about 15 miles away from rail. 13 miles in the Greenway, then a couple of miles into Fairfax County. It's done a lot of help for my commuters who go to Washington, who are originally driving down to Washington or driving down to West Falls Church, which is the current terminus. Now they will drive down and park there. So it's created a scenario whereby many people who were taking the cars now will avail themselves of transit, take a bus from, say, Leesburg, or carpool down to the Wheelie Avenue stop and then go down. When that rail comes to Dallas Airport, it'll serve the terminal August 2018, I think, Woody. Then with 2 stops in Loudoun County. I think we'll see more and more of people who work in Washington availing themselves of that great service.
Now, those public-private partnerships have had some success, but some of them have been negative as well. There's the Elizabeth River crossing, I believe, that the state had to buy down some of the tolls on to alleviate the discontent in the Hampton Roads area. But there have been others that have been successful. There's been the opening of the 95 hot lanes recently as well. And I know you serve on the Transportation Committee. Talk to us about those issues.
I like public-private Transportation Act projects. It's a great tool in our toolbox. But occasionally those public-private partnerships can go haywire. One project that has been something that really was an eye-opener, Woody, was the Route 460 project. That was a project where I think over $200 million were spent on studies and alignment acquisition studies, but not 1 square foot of right-of-way was ever required. And you think of all that money that we would love to have put into roads.
I think it was about $300 million.
I think it was. It was more. I said 200 million. It probably was 300, but still, it's a large amount of money that we don't really have anything to show for it. One thing that was done early in the session, there was a Public-Private Transportation Act reform bill. It was carried by the chairman of our Appropriations Committee, Chris Jones. So early in the session, we did 2 bills, both of which came through transportation, Woody. One was a bill that determined how we allocate money that we have for roads in a very good, efficient way. And then second, we reformed the PPTA Act. Both those bills were supported very strongly by transportation, and I believe they will be signed by Governor McAuliffe if they've not already been signed by him.
Now, I understand that the Commonwealth Transportation Board is working to set forth a number of criteria based upon legislation that has been passed. I think congestion mitigation, economic development, especially in rural areas, and more important than anything else, as I understand it now, the state has to take into consideration the return on investment.
Absolutely, Woody. That's an excellent point, particularly for us in Northern Virginia. Two bills came into law in the past couple of years. House Bill 599 that applies to Northern Virginia, then House Bill 2. And what it basically does, it says, focus in Northern Virginia, where we have great road congestion. The VDOT is required to rate projects based upon their potential to engage in congestion mitigation. They're given a rating between 100 and 0. And VDOT has been, over the course of the past 18 months, Woody, working on a formula by which they can do that. And originally VDOT said, this is too tough, I'm not sure we can do it. But they've worked on it and said, okay, we can now rate projects based on congestion mitigation. So what that's going to do is going to allow us to have a spreadsheet of information when road project choices are made, where we can tell our constituents on a dollar-for-dollar basis, this is making your commute easier, this is alleviating congestion. Some projects are not going to rate well. Some projects that politicians really want will come in with a 17 or something very low, and they'll be very disappointed. But we're applying some science to determine what's the best way to spend money on roads, and that's a good thing.
So a lot more transparency and a lot more accountability.
Absolutely. Matter of fact, the initial project list just came out about a month ago, Woody, on all the projects that the Northern Virginia Transportation Authority that I serve on are looking at. And many local governments got that. Some are happy, some are not. It's kind of like getting out a report card on projects. Some projects were ranked very high, like 659 improvements in Loudoun County, the Fairfax County Parkway. Others were not. But we're kind of getting into this, and I think it's going to be something that will give rise to more intelligent decisions on allocating finite transportation resources.
Now, for the last couple of years, you've been serving on more than one of those commissions, and I understand as a result of that, you've seen the light in terms of maybe combining those two entities?
Yeah, the Speaker, Woody, appointed me to two groups that sound almost the same: the Northern Virginia Transportation Authority and the Northern Virginia Transportation Commission. When the Speaker appointed me to those, I sent out a press release, and some of my constituents said, "Isn't this redundant government? I mean, what's the difference between the two?" Well, the truth of the matter is the Northern Virginia Transportation Commission is really the Northern Virginia Transit Commission. They oversee WMATA, Washington Metro Rail, Virginia Railway Express, bus services, really transit. They don't engage in road planning. The Northern Virginia Transportation Authority is funded by our recent transportation bill, and they are actually building projects together with local governments, and it's a great program whereby 70% of the money that comes into the authority goes to projects of regional significance. These ones that don't really pay attention to political boundaries, that just give big congressional relief. 30% of it goes back to projects that the individual counties and cities and towns want to have. So it's a good balance there. I had the thought, Woody, that it would be wise to look at the synergy and efficiency of combining these two groups. Now, whenever you try to combine two elements of government, it's always going to be controversial. There's turf issues. Some people worry about losing their jobs. That was not my intent at all. My thought was there can be greater efficiencies because we're getting more and more to the point where we have to make road decisions thinking about transit, make transit decisions thinking about roads. You can't leave them in separate hemispheres anymore. And my thought was by looking at ways to combine these two groups, we can get these efficiencies and plan together in such a way that we can be more efficient in allocation of dollars for transportation in general. That bill was not successful. As a matter of fact, Woody, I wound up striking it at my own request because it was not ready for prime time. It had too many moving parts I had to work on. But the theory, I think, is still a good one that we're going to work on in future years.
Now, I'm sure that another issue you're focused on relates to the importance of transportation to the Port of Virginia. As I understand it, the port will now be able to handle those post-Panamax ships, those huge ships, and we have a competitive advantage, but we have to get those products and services to the port and out of the port. Talk to us about transportation needs overall.
Our port is critical for Virginia. Absolutely. Matter of fact, in my district, Woody, you may have heard of the Virginia Inland Port.
Oh, absolutely.
That's just south of my district.
In Front Royal?
Exactly. South of my district, really southern Clark County goes into Warren County, Front Royal, where the port's located. That is a key element in the Virginia port's overall operations. But you're right, with the Panama Canal being dredged to allow for big boats, there's maybe only 3 ports on the East Coast that can handle these big boats. Savannah being one,
Charleston,
South Carolina, I believe, and of course Hampton Roads. So we have to stay competitive, and when those big boats come into Hampton Roads, they have to have adequate transportation resources and rail connectivity in order to get the product in and out of the port. That means we've got to have roads that support that. That was one reason why the Route 460 project was being talked about originally, that it would be a south of the James way of getting truck traffic to Interstate 95 or major north-south corridor. Even though that project is pretty much shelved for now, we still need to make sure that we've got the ability to handle truck traffic from enhanced port activities getting to those major north-south corridors serving the eastern seaboard.
And of course it's important to agriculture because as I understand it, we export quite a bit of soybeans, if you will, to China, for example.
Agriculture is still the #1 industry in Virginia. In my district, Woody, for example, we have Virginia wine going to Paris.
To Paris?
Yeah. Oh, wow. Isn't that great? We have Virginia wine that's being served in French restaurants. The quality of our wines, which is an agricultural project, is a product that's been greatly growing in quality and quantity produced. Then there's soybeans, forestry products. Virginia agriculture has got a great name, and I got to give a shout out to Todd Haymore, who's been probably one of the most successful secretaries of agriculture we've ever had, serving under first a Republican governor, now under a Democratic governor. He gets it, and one reason we've been so well in our trade mission selling Virginia agricultural projects is due to Secretary Haymore's good work.
Now, new technologies bring new challenges, and you've had one this session as well relating to an app one can use on the phone to call someone to pick you up and take you from point A to point B. Talk to us about that.
Uber is a technology, I don't need to explain what the technology is, but it's a wonderful technology that Uber and some of their other transportation network companies such as Lyft have came up with. And they came into our Commonwealth with a great degree of consumer demand. Everyone loves getting your iPhone out and calling the black Uber car or the Lyft car with the pink lips to come pick you up. The problem was that they came into our Commonwealth, shall we say, not in full conformance with our laws. And that's not a good thing. And I think Uber originally came in to our Commonwealth saying, well, you guys need to change your laws to accommodate our business model, rather than we're going to make our business model comport with your laws. So that's a problem. And we knew we had to do something in this session. And so there was early in the session, Woody, many late nights of all the stakeholders in a room coming up with a compromise bill. And the thought was, find a way that can legitimize a very good technology. Let's face it, Uber's got a great concept, and its other co-workers. But do it in such a way that we don't materially disadvantage our thriving taxi cab industry that are subject to local rate requirements by counties, cities, and towns, and have been a major player in our business community for close to a century. The product that came out was not perfect. Both sides said, we have enough in this bill we like and dislike, but let's let that bill go forward. It's classic compromise legislation. I voted against it, Woody, because I didn't think it addressed all the points that I want addressed. Uber uses a product called surge pricing, whereby you can find yourself paying $300 for an 8-mile road, 8-mile drive, if the demand is so high that's the market value.
For example, when the Redskins are down here with their training camp on Broad Street.
It's pure market demand. If people are bidding up the price, there's no limit on how it can go. I heard a story. There's a group of Duke University students went to Chapel Hill, North Carolina for Halloween. Took them $8 to go from Durham to Chapel Hill. Coming back at 2 a.m., there was $300.
Oh my goodness.
That could be a little bit of gouging. That's not accommodated in the bill. Hopefully it will be in the future. But that was a compromise legislation, Woody, that the taxi cab industry and the transportation network companies supported also.
So you had to balance the entrance of the incumbent, the new entrant, and more importantly, the consumer.
Exactly. And it's always, what you just said, exactly what we did. Many taxi communities said, you know, I have to get a license from the city to operate. And that requires me to maintain a taxi cab service at 4 a.m. so I can take a nurse working late night to the hospital. Uber doesn't have a requirement that they have to provide services 24/7. Taxi cab industries are bound by certain rate schedules. Uber's not. So the taxi cab industry made, I thought, some very good points that we're regulated by the locals, counties, cities, and towns. This newfangled company with the great technology is not, and that's unfair. But there's always some, what I would call technological Darwinism, Woody. A good idea that comes out from the minds of Americans gets turned into a business, and that wins. So you have to appreciate the fact that Uber's got a technology that's not going away. So this bill legitimizes what Uber's good idea is, provides enough protections to the established companies while accommodating the consumer protection aspects of it all. So it's a good bill, not perfect, but it's something that can help us on a going forward basis.
So I take it some of the issues around vetting the people who drive either the Uber or the Lyft cars, and especially the question of insurance coverage, have been dealt with in that bill.
Yes, those were adequately addressed. I'm comfortable with the vetting of drivers and the maintenance of insurance. Those were two really big issues, because when Uber first came in, they said, well, these drivers have their own insurance policy, they're not covered by us. As a matter of fact, Uber even took the position that they're not providing the service. It's the individual drivers. They're just this technology company that's orchestrating a business relationship between a driver and a passenger. It's not them providing the service. But the new bill does provide protections on insurance and vetting, and that's a good thing.
Now, ethics. You chaired a committee on ethics.
It's my first committee, subcommittee chairmanship, Woody, that I've had in my 4 years.
Congratulations and condolences.
Well, it was a blue chip group. Every single person on there was handpicked from the Court of Justice Committee. It had Delegate Todd Gilbert, who carried the bill last year, Chairman Dave Albo, the chair of the Court of Justice Committee, the Democratic Minority Leader Dave Toscano of Charlottesville. So it was really a strong group. And they had about 8 omnibus ethics bills looking at gift disclosure and transparency and gift limits also. Then get into the issues of what's legitimate travel and what's a gift, and the difference between tangible gifts and intangible gifts. Very complicated stuff. And we did something rather unusual, Woody. We first said, okay, we have to have one bill that goes forward. When the omnibus bill has many moving parts. So we chose the broadest bill, which was the bill that Delegate Gilbert had. Then what we did, we said, okay, let's take all these other ideas and put them into this bill. So we spent close to 12 hours. And all these other 8 bills were literally incorporated into the end product. Very bipartisan. And at the end of the day, everybody on the committee, all Republicans and all Democrats, voted aye for that bill, and it was reported to the full Court of Justice Committee. And it was one of the more enjoyable things I've done here in the General Assembly, because we listened, we heard from the public, and we crafted a bill that I think raises the bar and accommodates the demand from our constituents that we had to do some work on ethics. And I think will be a bill that the governor will sign, I think, and that will provide that needed ethical increase in our regulations, and also provide some clarity, Woody. For example, what is a legitimate legislative trip and what's a junket? Now that's accommodated in our laws.
So it'll go a long way in restoring the public confidence that has been eroded.
Yes, I think so. For example, a $100 gift cap. That is the maximum amount of any gift. No tickets to Redskin games and all of that. Those intangible things are now covered. While there have not been really any real ethical lapses in the legislative branch, we have to be cognizant that in the executive branch there was a breach of public trust, and that gives all of government kind of a bad name. So we felt compelled that this was a year where we had to build on our work from last year, where we did another ethics bill, raise the bar even further, and I think we've got a good product. Governor McAuliffe gave a number of good ideas, and we in the House and the Senate are now in the process, Woody, of taking a Senate bill and a House bill that's 95% identical. We're going to merge those together in conference and then send that to Governor McAuliffe. And I think he'll sign it because he's been working with us in good faith toward helping us raise the bar of these ethical standards. And we also did a number of other things, Woody, in the ethics bill that were brought up, such as the Governor's Opportunity Fund. Mm-hmm. The governor brings in business. Well, if you're a person trying to get a grant, should you be able to write checks to the Governor's Political Action Committee to incentivize a Governor's Opportunity Fund? The answer is no, and we addressed that in the bill also.
Now, the budget's almost done, but I wanted you to highlight the differences between the House budget and what the governor was pursuing at the beginning of the session.
I am happy to report, Woody, that I think we will have a budget sent forward to the governor well in advance of our scheduled February 28th adjournment date. The governor put forward a budget. It was amended by the House Appropriations Committee, and a number of fees that the governor had were taken out. But one thing that's made it easy this year, Woody, is we've got some good economic news. There's been more money flowing into our Commonwealth than we thought. After we were very conservative last year and doing some cuts, this year we can restore some things. Teacher pay raises for our state troopers who put their lives on the line every day on the highways of our Commonwealth. We're able to fund higher education, K-12, and do some other things that are critically needed. We also, Woody, were able to put just under $100 million into the Rainy Day Fund. That's a critical fund that we do as a matter of good government. It's one reason we have such a good bond rating. So the House and the Senate are going to probably meet today and for the next 6 days or so, working out their differences. So I predict on or around February the 26th, both houses will approve a budget and be sent to the governor. But it's a structurally sound budget, Woody. It's conservative, but gives some needed pay raises, and I think it's one the governor will sign. He's bound to have some line amendments. Any governor will always have line amendments, and we'll consider those. But I'm proud of the efforts the Appropriations Committee's done this year.
Great. We've got about 30 seconds left, and I can't let you leave without congratulating you on your work, your continued work with the Boy Scouts of America.
Thank you, Woody.
And I know you've done some work this session. You're still working on license plates. Talk to us about that very briefly.
Well, thank you, Woody. Thank you for bringing up the greatest youth leadership movement in the history of the world. As a former Scoutmaster, I always carry that Scouty spirit with me. You know, seriously, Virginia has close to 180 different license plates, but there's not one for Scouting. 45 other states have license plates for Scouting. I filed a bill this year to allow for a Scouting license plate, and we came up about 100 signatures short. We'll bring them back next year.
Great. Thank you for being here, Delegate Randy Minchew.
Thank you, Woody. I appreciate it. It's an honor to be here.
Thank you for watching Cable Reports, brought to you by the Virginia Cable Telecommunications Association and Comcast, connecting Virginians to their government. Until next time, I'm Woody Evans.
Mm-hmm.